had an interview with Sarah Edwards a couple weeks ago,
Uh-huh.
and we got a notification and it was like it stopped recording or it logged me out or something like that. And she's like, it still says it's recording. I was like, okay, let's just roll with it. And then it ended up fine. So that's
Oh,
good.
okay. Well, at least that was the end result. For a minute there, I thought you were going on the other end of the
I
spectrum.
know that would be literally so bad, but it is what it is. Podcasts are fun. You have a podcast too. Do you want to talk about
Yeah.
that a little bit?
Yeah, basically, it was my own little passion project after I rebranded. I just needed something to latch on that I could wrap my head around this, what was then my new brand theme of like circus and all that jazz. And it's funny because I think as a designer, myself included, but also a lot of people in my audience, I just expect visual mediums to be the easiest for me to create and not just consume. Obviously, I love to consume anything visual, but I just kind of wanted to challenge myself and see, like, oh, if I had a podcast, because I love listening to them, what would
Mhm.
it end up being like? And that's what the Freak Show has turned into. My lovely podcast manager, Adrienne Cruz, who I'm sure you have heard of because she's all over the place as well, she has let me know that now that I've surpassed 50 episodes, I'm like on the top, I don't even know percentage because most podcasts drop off way sooner than that. So now I
Mhm.
see it less as a passion project and more of a marketing platform, but I'm trying to still have as much fun with it, which I feel like is the
Yeah.
key to making it a sustainable marketing strategy.
Yes, yeah, that's so true. And I love the fact that it's so themed with the circus theme. It just really like ties into your brand. And what types of people have you had on there so far?
I love to deeply curate my guest list. Basically, it started off as a very selfish reason. I invited all the people that I had questions to ask. And I was
Mhm.
like, I'm just going to have them answer them on my podcast. And hopefully, more people than just me can benefit from those answers. And so I've had like all the best inspiring names that I have in my community, like Sarah from Between the Lines Copy. I've obviously had Adrienne herself as a guest. I've had
Mhm.
a couple of my own clients as guests. I just, everyone that I kind of have those deep conversations in the DMs that you just can't even tell how it started, but it just got way too deep and like in a rabbit hole.
Mhm.
At any given moment, I'm probably going to ask them, hey, do you want to come on the podcast so we just can actually chat face to face?
Yeah, yeah, that's kind of how I had the idea for Dear Creator. And I feel like a lot of people, at least like when we see them on social media, they talk about being in the messy middle, they build in public, like they talk about like going from A to B or wherever they are in their journey, but it still seems a little bit performative in a way
Mm,
and like polished, which makes sense. Like social media, you get to choose what you
you
share.
put out. Yeah,
Yeah. And
agree.
like you still want your brand to be perceived in either a professional way or however you want it to be perceived. So I think sometimes when you have like longer form content like podcasts, it's really nice to just like get the nuance and like
Mm,
the real lessons and stories
yeah,
behind
agreed.
those changes.
Agree. And I like the whole concept of building in public is something that I'm still wrapping my head around on what my version of doing that is. Because to be honest, I don't think I've ever accomplished a full like end to end start building, show the final result kind of thing. I'm one of those people that I love to have new ideas, hate to follow them through. So what ends up happening is I'll announce something, anything, and then it just doesn't happen, which is very on brand. But I think the whole concept of building in public for me, because like as a creative, I'm one of those people that I need space for the creativity to breathe and to actually for the best result to come forward. And if I'm worried about, I'm right now recording this to show the behind the scenes or the in process, then the actual result that like, I'm more worried about filming the behind the scenes than I am about the actual thing that I'm doing. So it
Hmm.
doesn't, like, my brain can't wrap its head around it.
Yeah.
And then I know there's that whole thing about sharing from the scar and not the wound. So like you actually film the whole behind the scenes thing, but you only start posting once you've reached that final result. But that,
Mhm.
again, that to me feels like, oh, but you already know what the end result's going to be like. So how authentic, quote unquote, is that? So like there's a lot of nuance and gray
Mhm.
areas here for me still. And I'm still trying to figure out what my version of that can look like.
Mhm. Yeah, and like figuring it out can feel kind of overwhelming too, because when you see everybody else do it, or like you're told all of this advice on social media, you're
Everyone
like,
has
what the heck?
everything put together except me.
I feel like that always is the case, or at least it feels that way for creative people.
100%. With
Yeah, and
launches, with campaigns, like whenever I'm in the middle of it, in the thick and thin of a launch, I'm like, yeah, everyone is so much more put together than I am at this very stage.
but you can make it look like you have it all together on social
Hopefully
media.
so. Hopefully so.
That's so funny and so true. I feel like just a lot of people could resonate because, yeah, like here on Dear Creator, we talk a lot about just being in the messy middle and like navigating different transitions or even just reflecting on those pivots or moments where you're building or maintaining your business or
Hmm.
launching something new. And so, something that I think is a good segue into just really getting deep into that conversation is talking about your fifth brandversary is what you called it,
Yeah.
which I love that. And what was so interesting that I learned about you is that you rebranded, but you said that you rebranded yourself and you didn't really mention like I rebranded my business. But I would just love to hear about like when you decided to do that and why you positioned it in that way where you're like rebranding yourself.
Yeah, I think when I first started my business, I always said that my one and only goal was to be able to just maintain myself. I wasn't trying to make a profit. I wasn't trying to make this a whole ass agency, which sounds like the goal of every designer in this world.
Mhm.
Is like you need a team, you need bigger is better and all that jazz. And to me it was just like, no, I want to be just myself, at least for now. I have no like 10-year plan. I just
Mhm.
need this to be able to pay the bills and maintain myself. I don't care about growing a huge profit. I don't care. I just need this to both fuel my creativity and make a living. That's it.
Mhm.
And if I was able to make what I was making at my one and only job, which was like 2-month internship at a nightmare hotel, if I was able to match that, I was happy. And suddenly, in less than a year, I surpassed it. And then it was like, okay, so I guess I should be doing something more with this. And then it became this whole process of figuring out what that more could be. And from
Mhm.
very early on, I knew I don't want an agency. I don't want to be in charge of other people. I'm I'm the happiest while doing the actual design work, and I don't want to hire someone else to do the thing that I like doing. And then I'm the one that has to manage their work. Like that whole thing just was never my goal in the first place. And
Mhm.
when I reached 5 years, I really started seeing myself less as a freelancer doing odd jobs and more as an online business owner. And that just made a shift somehow in my brain. I
Mhm.
feel like it's one of those anniversary things. And before then, my official business name was just my name design. So Eva Coat Design, which in and of itself is a terrible idea because I'm Portuguese. My name is very hard to pronounce for people who aren't in my country, and most of my clients aren't Portuguese. So that
Mhm.
was just a very practical, logical reason for rebranding. But the more I thought of it, I had this huge blockage of if my business is named something else than just my name, does that mean that I'm then growing that agency that I don't want to grow or
Mhm.
create? Until I saw several other personal brands. So my main goal was maintaining that personal aspect of it,
Mhm.
whose business name isn't themselves, it's just a business name. And
Right.
once I saw that example, then I could do the reverse work of, okay, so I can do that too. I can look up to it and then figure out again my own version of it.
Mhm.
And the one thing that I really wanted it to be was fun. I've come to realize that having fun is the easiest way to making a business sustainable. Because the moment that
Mhm.
you stop having fun, then putting any amount of effort into it becomes that much harder because it's not enjoyable anymore. And there are going to be days, as every single person listening to this knows, running a business isn't that enjoyable. Like, it's just, even if you make your own job description, not every single part of your job is going to be that dream that you pictured in your head. So to me,
Mhm.
making sure that there's an element of fun, I can't say in every single thing that I do, but just sprinkled along the way, that just
Mhm.
makes it that much easier. And so when I was rebranding myself and my business and my brand and all the things, I really just wanted it to be as fun as possible for me to work with, because we are
Mhm.
all, I feel, our own worst clients. And so I know that doing, for example, my own marketing is a thing that I always leave last in the to do list. So if I can make it as
Mhm.
fun as I can, maybe I'll have and put a little bit more effort in it. So that was just the whole goal. And with the help of a lot of people, again, it was my own brand, and I don't have a team of people, but I hired and outsourced to my dream providers so that I could make my own brand kind of like my dream project, because there's no budget, there's no
Mhm.
timelines. I could just do whatever the hell I want, which is both the dream and the nightmare for a designer because there's no constraints. So really, it's shiny object syndrome galore. Um,
Yeah.
but with the help of Katie Pennell, we landed on that circus theme. And at the beginning, it was really interesting, like the whole process of, but what the hell does circus have to do with a brand designer, and figuring out the whole language around it and almost like a
Mhm.
system to it. And I think it's having that system and that whole thought process behind it that allows you to then run with it, in the sense that it can grow with you, it can expand with you, because brands just evolve as we
Mhm.
do, especially if you're
Yeah.
a single solopreneur, single person. Your business becomes very much this mirror image of who you are at any given moment. And so if
Mhm.
you build this brand that is, that's, it's a reflection of just you in this one moment, but cannot expand as you do, then you'll end up feeling exactly the same stuck that you did
Yeah.
before rebranding. So I think creating this system that is able to grow and evolve and expand is a lot of work, granted, but also allows you to not have as much work going forward. You just have to
Mhm.
take this as like a front load up front, like a website. Creating your first website is a whole load of front up work, but
Mhm.
maintaining it becomes less so than just that initial impact.
Yeah, yeah, for sure. No, yeah, thank you so much for sharing that. I think it's really interesting when you were talking about fun was like a huge value to you
Yeah,
almost to
yeah.
move forward with like through your rebrand and stuff. I was wondering if you found yourself not having fun as much, or maybe like business wasn't
Yeah.
feeling fun. And is that where you started to be like, okay, something's got to change?
Yeah, I think especially with the whole marketing myself, I have a post-it of this on my other monitor. So I'm currently in my living room. My office is in
Mhm.
another room in the house. And I
And
have
she
a
has like
post-it.
the coolest chair too. So if you're on YouTube, you should
Yeah, you
definitely
can see my
see her
little
chair.
IKEA chair. I have this post-it on my monitor that says, it's written a lot better than I'm ever going to say it now, but it's something along the lines of, don't forget that your marketing efforts equal your sales output. It's really easy for us, like and I'm 100% a culprit of this. I always leave my own marketing for last. Client work comes first, family life comes first, life comes first.
Mm-hmm.
However, if I continuously leave my marketing for last, then I'm sorry, I don't get to complain when my sales don't match what I wanted to, because I didn't, again, make that work up front for the sales to
Mm-hmm.
eventually come. So I just have that mental note to myself. And what I noticed was happening was that, I was so excited to see other people's content and the way that other people were able to both get personal, but still, like, everything still made sense for the brand and the business and the offers that they shared. It was, everything was so cleverly intertwined. And I just wanted something like that for myself. Because one, it felt easier to share. Two, it
Mm-hmm.
felt more fun. And three, I think having that restraint, and that's what I've learned since, having some sort of a playing field and some rules actually allows you to be more creative. I think a lot of people think that rules means you get to be less creative and there's less room to play. To me, it's
Mm-hmm.
the exact opposite. Like, if you give me a set of rules, I can find my way out of that comfort box or out of the expectation that you have. And it's a lot more fun and challenging for me, instead of you just giving me like this huge blank canvas and saying, do what you want.
Hmm.
If you tell someone do what you want, they're just going to have this blank cursor, like, I don't know what I'm supposed to do. Where if you give them a set of rules, they'll most easily say, okay, with this in mind, here's what I can do or what I can make. And it just activates that little child in you. Like, how can I play within the rules, but still make something that you're not
Yeah.
expecting? Almost like mischievous, which I find really fun. And I was feeling that everyone else's content, one, was so much better than mine. And I know a lot of people relate to this, but also that I wanted to find some sort of through line from my own personal brand into my content, into my offers, so that I could make sure that all my marketing efforts actually led somewhere. And what I found was that my brand was kind of like this umbrella at the top, and everything else falls under it. So
Hmm.
sometimes, and I've learned to see this with my clients as well, what we're seeing are just symptoms to a bigger problem. So we
Oh yeah.
struggle with content, but that's just a symptom of the brand, which is the thing above it, not working as it should. And this
Hmm.
could be an array of different things to solve. It could be messaging, could be copy, could be design. Like, there's a lot, and you need to find out where the problem exactly lies. But usually it's not the content itself, because you
Yeah.
still have
Yeah.
ideas to say, you still have stuff that's interesting for other people to learn, hear, find value in, etc., etc. It just needs something that connects it to everything else, so that you, as the business owner, can act as a business owner and be like,
Yeah.
this marketing effort leads here, and this is where people get from it. And that's what I was finding hard. I felt like at that moment I was posting for posting, which is not the goal with any marketing effort. At that point, you're just
Right.
wasting time creating stuff that you know doesn't lead somewhere. Your audience can't see the path to it. So what's the point? So
Hmm.
I chose to stop my marketing for a fair while I figured out my own brand, so that then I could come back with this renewed energy. And it was felt, and it was like, when I say it was a rebrand, it was an overhaul, like from changing my brand name, changing my website, a whole theme, offer names, offer structure, messaging. Like, there was not a single thing that was left untouched. And it
Yeah.
had to be like piece by piece. So once I figured out the fun parts of the brand identity and the visual identity, I launched that on Instagram, but I didn't have a website ready yet. So then I launched the website, and it just got dripped. And anytime I had an idea, I dripped it too. So then came the
Hmm.
podcast and the new name for the newsletter. And having it everything fall under this theme of mine, I think made it not just fun for me to share, but fun for others to almost like guess, like, ooh, I know she
Hmm.
has the circus theme. I wonder what the newsletter will be named, or what the
Right.
podcast will be about, or the format, anything like that.
Yeah, that's really cool. Yeah, I was thinking about how long it might have took you to rebrand, and just you
Too
sharing that
much?
you like too long. It takes a while. There's a lot of energy, creativity, like managing different tasks and
Yeah.
projects and things like that. But I like how you shared that you dripped it out, because I feel like some people think that they have to do it all in 1 week, and it's like that's just not sustainable, or not, maybe not even realistic, unless you have like the agency or whatever than like a lot of people. But
It
I feel
really
like,
depends on the business that you also have. I think some people
yeah.
want that like greatest showman moment where everything is laid out at the same time, and here's the new brand, the new website, the new this, the new that. What I realized, and when I first announced it, was just the name, the brand name change. Even
Hmm.
that, people needed time to get used to, because now the URL isn't the same, the handle on everything isn't the same,
Yeah.
the profile picture isn't the same. And so I saw with other clients of mine, when you just change the looks of something, but the name stays the same, it's
Hmm.
easier for people to have something to grab onto, because there's still an element of memorability there that stayed the same, that's equal. When you change absolutely everything, you need to give your audience time to get used to that change too, because you've been
Hmm.
working on it for so long. You yourself have gotten used to it, but your audience doesn't know anything about it. So they need
Yeah.
time too. And you're going to see, or at least that's what I saw, obviously a lot of support up front, like, I absolutely love this change, etc. But then everything that comes after it, and after this big launch moment, I mean, real life follows, and the real like cadence of day-to-day work just is naturally bound to happen, you're not going to see the same level of excitement as on that
Mhm.
first big push. And that's just with everything. So you need your brand to be this like foundation that's there to support you so you don't absolutely piss your pants and go, "Oh my gosh, I made the worst decision possible," because now nobody's with the same excitement as they were before. So just
Yeah.
making sure everything is aligned and that you have a plan. Either you know, I'm going to drip feed this and here's the order. It's I love a plan. I'm a planner at my heart. Either you
Mhm.
drip feed everything or you go the other way around and make the huge blockbuster announcement, and then
Yeah.
you need to continue almost educating your audience on the change that happened.
Yeah, and it's kind of our job to communicate those things because even when I've worked with clients who were pivoting or transitioning different things in their business, I told them, I was like, you don't have to share it like right now, like as you're
Mm,
figuring it out, but it is important to communicate that to your existing audience so they know of those changes, or they're
yeah,
gonna be confused when you just like
even
ended or
like
I've changed this offer.
yeah, even like simple things like you change your visual identity, but then you don't really use it anywhere. So like you pay someone for a logo, a color palette, new font, whatever. But then
Hmm.
either it just wasn't in the service or you didn't have the time to do it yourself, but you don't end up applying it to your social media or to your newsletter or your website. So all those places where your audience is actually seeing that visual identity in action, if you
Hmm.
don't put it to good use, you might as well not have rebranded because no one knows. You can
Yeah.
expect them to know.
Yeah, exactly. Oh my gosh, I was just thinking about how I've been thinking about this for a while, like rebranding my newsletter. It was originally Curate the Chaos, and it was very like
Uh-huh.
educational, stuff like that. Shared other pieces of content that I would post on other platforms just so people, just in case they missed it or whatever.
Yeah.
But I feel like my natural way of speaking and talking and sharing my experience is through like my own personal lens, unfiltered, like it's very like Dear Creator. But I was like, okay, I'm going to change this to the Soft Pivot Diaries because Soft Pivot is my philosophy around just low risk, sustainable shifts as you transition from who you are to who you're becoming, whether that's your business, relationships, age, anything. And so I changed the logo for the newsletter. And of course, I'm subscribed to my own newsletter. I opened it up with the first email and you couldn't even read the logo because the dark mode on Gmail was
Yes. Oh
on.
no. The
It's so annoying.
dark mode on Gmail is a nightmare, first and foremost, just letting you know. And obviously, like me as a designer, I'm so used to exporting everything as PNGs and with transparent backgrounds, and that
Yeah.
you don't even think that, yeah, not everyone is going to have a white background on their emails. So we should probably make this accessible, just in
Yeah,
case.
so anyone listening, make sure you send like a test email before and check on the dark mode. But I was just thinking about how many things could maybe go wrong during a rebrand, but maybe
Ooh,
I would just like love to hear your perspective or experiences through your
oh my God.
brandversary moment where you were like, oh my gosh, I shared this and it's not ready or it's not how I wanted it to be. Like, did you do any iterations like after you've already launched something?
Funny enough, I think the thing that I changed the most in such short amount of time was the actual template of my newsletter because I wanted
Oh,
I wanted to look like something and I didn't know what that something was.
it's always the
And
newsletters.
for fuck's sake, really, it really is. Because I wanted the format to be something that I didn't yet know what it was. And as a designer, like words to me are my biggest nightmare, as is design to someone else. And it's the
Mhm.
thing that takes me the longest is all the writing tasks. Lo and behold, having a business involves a lot of writing tasks. A lot, really. A lot more than I think
And
anyone.
oh, are you bilingual too? Like, does that play into it as well at all?
I think it's more like the whole speaking two languages gets more difficult when I'm speaking Portuguese than when I'm speaking English.
Okay. Hmm.
I just, it's funny. I forget how to say things in Portuguese, which is my mother tongue, and I know the English
Yeah.
word for it, and I just can't. There's dots in my brain that aren't connecting, clearly.
Uh-huh.
But the one thing that I always stress to other people who are in the process of rebranding is to make sure that your new assets are very organized. So you have, I call it for my own clients, like a master folder, and
Hmm.
everything is in there and clearly labeled. So if you need it, you know where to find it. I think you want to create the less amount of stress with the change, because that's already stressful,
Yeah.
as possible. So making sure everything is very organized and then implemented, I think it's key number one. Also, the minute that you land on the visual identity, just go and update the brand kits everywhere on Canva, on Flowdesk, on your website. Just go and do it. And it's one less task,
Hmm.
and everything kind of is able to be a lot easier to then maintain with that.
Yeah. And you don't have to
Um,
like manually do it
yeah.
every
Also,
single
like
time.
pro, just like with the newsletter, don't do the transparent PNGs because people have light and dark modes going around. With Canva brand kits, I always urge people to upload the SVG formats of their logos, because then you just need to upload one color format of each
Mm.
logo.
And then you
Because
can
then you
change
can
it.
change, yeah, you can change the color just
Nice.
like with any other Canva native element. So again, one less thing, one less
Hmm.
stressful.
It's like
uh
very simple. Like you just simplify the process instead of making it
yes.
this entire like
Yeah.
chaotic, scattered mess. And I feel like during a rebrand, that can be the case because you have all these old files too clogging up your storage and everything.
And like you're never going to, and I've tried to do this for myself and for clients, kind of create this like a checklist of here are all the places that you need to check to change your brand. You can never do that because my marketing strategy is different from your marketing strategy. The amount of accounts you've created on any given platform, like I
Hmm.
cannot know that. Sometimes we don't even know our own accounts. So you're
Yeah.
always going to find like 1 year into the rebrand, this one place where you forgot to change the name and the profile picture and everything is out of date. And that's fine. That's part of it. One thing that I've learned to learn is how your own brand and business is this eternal work in progress. Nothing will ever be finished, which sounds
Hmm.
very stressful, but it's also the opportunity that you have to continuously improve everything. Yes, things
Hmm.
are never going to be perfectly matched to one another, and the designer in me slightly dies when I say this, but that's also good because I don't think your website, to the simplest level, your website and your Instagram should not be 100% equal because their goals
Hmm.
are not the same. Social media, most of the time, is this top of funnel to attract people into your world. And then they go to your website to build trust, buy from you, create, just get to know you a little bit more. And they need this relationship between the platforms to be seamless. Like you don't want to be catfishing people and for both things to be so distant from one another that people wonder if it's the same version of you that they're seeing.
Hmm.
But they also don't have to match 100%. Just like
Yeah.
me talking on a podcast is always going to be slightly different than me writing the newsletter. And that's not just me being inauthentic or whatever, it's that you talk differently than you write. And
Hmm.
you have different facets of your personality that you show different people, but it's still you. It's just different versions of it. And that's cool
Yeah.
to realize.
Yes, I love that. Thank you. I was like, whoa, like that's so true. I was also thinking about how, like, how people are like, your eyebrows should be like
Sisters,
sisters, not
not
twins or something
twins.
like that. Yeah,
Mhm.
I thought of that when you were sharing that about like social media and your website and things like that. And I feel like everyone can just like release a lot of pressure after hearing that
Yeah.
because it's hard out there. We put a lot of pressure on ourselves. And I was actually curious, like, which one do you think is more important, social media or a website? The
Mm,
internet's being weird
I'm
right
going to
now.
go. Yeah.
Okay.
Okay. I don't want to be the person that says it depends because everyone hates that answer. But if I had to choose, like gun to my head, I would say the website is more important just
Hmm.
because in the world that we currently live in, I'm very grateful that marketing on social media is one, still accessible, two, still free.
Hmm.
And I think we forget what a privilege that is most of the time. Like if you go back not that long ago, most people with businesses had to spend money to market their business. Point blank. You could
Yeah.
spend more or less, but you had to spend something. And now with social
Hmm.
media, you don't. but that means that you don't have the full control over it. And I know that people can say, have a mailing list because then you have control of your audience versus social media. Like we've been through that. But more so, I think your website is more important because you literally have full control over everything: the structure, the design, the words, where it leads people, what it then does for your offers. Do you have all
Hmm.
of offers on your website, or are some offers off the menu and just for you to tell people on emails or after they've worked with you? Like, you can make all the decisions. With social
Hmm.
media and even with email marketing, there are some constraints, and people have understood those constraints and how to adapt from one to another so well. For example, between long form content and short form content, we understand the difference, and we have created whole systems around creating one long form piece of content and how this one long form can create then like 5 short form posts for social media. We understand this. So we just need to apply that same vision structure to the design thinking too. So your
Hmm.
website, the amount of sections on a single website page, can you adapt it to like posts for social media? Can you take that and adapt it to a newsletter template? Just, I think people underestimate the getting creative is really just messy. Like, if you think
Hmm.
about a child painting with their hands and their fingers, like there's a whole mess that is going around
Hmm.
before something even turning slightly aesthetically pleasing. But you
Yeah.
need the mess in order for the actual colorful piece of paper to appear. And
Hmm.
your website is yours. Like, if you mess it up, you can just delete a page and start
Yeah.
over from scratch. Like, there's a lot of more playful room to grow with that than with social media, where everything feels such high stakes. Like, if you make even like a misspell on a carousel, are you going to delete the whole carousel that already has, I don't know how many likes, because of one misspell? Or are we having to learn to just not care?
Yeah. Sorry, perfectionist, but you're gonna have to just embrace
Like,
experiment.
this is a memo from me to me, because I'm the perfectionist that I'm talking to. Believe me, I've
We
deleted
we
posts
typically
because of a
are.
misspell,
We
and it's
typically
just
are the ones who are talking to ourselves. We need to take our own advice.
disclaimer.
Yeah. No, that's so true. That's so interesting. So something that you said was like like our brands are our mirror, like
Mhm.
to ourselves. Do you think that still applies to like an agency model?
Oh, I think so. And there are a lot of designers that I follow that almost have two accounts, one which is their personal brand, and another one that's their agency account, which then it tends to be more of a portfolio page, just
Yeah.
exposing the projects. But it's funny because usually those portfolio carousel posts or reels are collaborative posts with the personal brand. And so,
Yeah.
in my eyes, I think you could get away with just having the personal account, because at the end of the day, people are hiring you, which is the person behind the personal brand. Because there's a lot of
Mhm.
designers and even people with a very specific design style. I'm going to pick a designer, and if like I'm a designer, so I usually try and think like if I'm picking a copywriter, for example, I'm expecting every single copywriter that I'm looking into to be good at what they do. So, what's going to determine who I hire is the person that I'm seeing. Like, do I like your personality? Do you make me laugh? Like, can I relate and connect to you in some way, shape, or form? And if I
Mhm.
can, then I'm that much more likely to reach out and then initiate that process. And whether I end up buying or not, I was a lead at some point.
Yeah.
And with visual work, and it could be design, it could be photography, for example, it could be any other type of creative work. I think if you are an online service provider building a personal brand, probably a solopreneur, I don't think you need more than one account, because at the end of the day, people are trying to hire you, and actually having that mix of content, whether it's on social media, even on your website, just your online presence as a whole, be a
Mhm.
mix of you as the person behind it all and the work that this person is able to do, is the key to making your audience go, "Oh, I want a piece of that."
Yeah, for sure. Yeah, I was just thinking of how a friend of mine, she's getting married and she was looking at wedding photographers and
Yeah.
the work actually looked very similar. I feel like a lot of wedding photographers have a similar aesthetic or a visual
Mhm.
style, but she was looking at two that she really liked, but she's like, they're literally the same. It's like the work is the same, the prices are very
Yeah.
similar. Like, how do I choose? And I told her, I was like, go stalk them on social media, see what they post, see what you can find about them, like, see who you can relate to. And maybe that is just that one final decision that someone needs to make is based on your reputation or how
Yeah.
your values, like, maybe just like your hobbies that you share online, like, just things
Yeah.
like that.
And whenever I stumble across someone that's really afraid to put the personal side of themselves out in the open, if like when they are a business owner, they're kind of, and I've been there when you're like, I don't know how this connects to the thing that I'm trying to sell. I always say that when people are trying to choose, they are choosing based on the person. And if you're the person that is not putting themselves and their own personality at the forefront, then
Hmm.
you're making this potential client choose based on price, which then turns your
Hmm.
service into a commodity, which was never the goal in the first place. So, in
Hmm.
order for it not to be a price based decision and more than a commodity, you need to be putting something else in front of that potential client that is able to sway their decision, not in a I'm trying to convince you icky type of way, but just here's everything. Whoops, I just smacked my mic. Here's everything laid out on the table so that
Hmm.
you can make the best buying decision for you. But I still need to put all cards on the table so that you know everything.
Yeah, yeah, for sure. Something that just came up in my head that I really wanted to ask you was like, what design styles do you hate? Like you just like you're like, ew, that's so ugly.
To me, it's not even okay. So I think ugly.
I mean, it's
I don't
subjective,
even.
right?
Yeah, it's very subjective. Ugly to me is a very strong word. I think the ugly designs are where when things are giving different energies, like the color palette is really not matching the energy of a font, which is not really matching the photos, and everything's just kind of that Frankensteiny vibe, which is very hard to describe. Just you know it when you see it. The ones that I roll my eyes at are the equivalent of the golden hour photo shoots. Like I've seen this a bajillion times. I when I can't pinpoint someone's personality out of something, I'm just like, ugh, okay, fine. And that's typically with design that's made to look professional, taken seriously, quote unquote, high quality. And I get it. You're a business owner. Of course, you want to be taken seriously. Of course, you want to be seen as professional. But to me, that's just, and maybe I'm just naive, but to me, that's just the bare minimum. Like, if you're out here being an online service provider, I sure hope so that your work is high quality and that you're trustworthy and that you're professional in your way of doing business. So, what else
Hmm.
have you got? And
Yeah.
it's just design that is very minimal, is very safe and neutral. And again, there's nuance in here because there are certain industries or certain personal brands that's the right answer for. Because whenever I'm building someone's visual identity, one exercise that I love to do is to look at people inside that same industry and that same niche because you can always pick out some patterns. Like most people are using, like I remember this past client that I had, which was in the create content creator space. And we from the get-go, we saw that most people in that space were using like a dark black, some version of black as their overall color, and then a neon pop. And it could be
Hmm.
green, it could be blue, but it was just that very like almost techie
Hmm.
vibes.
Yeah.
And so we then had a choice to make. Either we followed this pattern because we know our audience is going to recognize that for what it is, like, oh, most content creators use this, you must be a content creator, which could be good. Or we could intentionally disrupt this pattern and go complete opposite way. Because this client already had a huge following and a huge audience, they didn't need to follow the pattern for others to recognize them. So we went the opposite way, which
Hmm.
admittedly is my favorite way of going about things. But if that brand was a newcomer and we didn't have that luxury of carving our own path for now, then we would have to pick some patterns that our audience already identifies to follow with. And that's when I
Hmm.
say, like, there's nuance here. But to me, any design style that you're choosing because, oh, this looks put together, this looks professional, like that's the wrong reason to choose it.
Mm-hmm.
Just like with an outfit, oh, I had this episode on my own podcast with Brigida, who's a stylist.
Mm-hmm.
And if you're choosing the outfit to go and speak at a conference just based on this looks put together, well, but what about everything else? Look
Yeah.
like the rest of your brand? Does it look like, do you feel comfortable in it? Do you feel confident putting yourself out on the stage and speaking to how many people are going to be there in that outfit? And to me, the
Mm-hmm.
visual identity is the outfit of your brand, but online version. Like, do you feel as proud as you can to put yourself forward with it? Because the more proud you feel showing up with that visual identity, the more likely you are to go after the opportunities that you've been wanting to come to you.
Do you feel like people choose this professional or safe identity because they're afraid, or like maybe I don't know, maybe it's like an identity thing, like they
I
think
think I
their
think it's a
business
confidence. I think it's a confidence
confidence?
thing. Because if I ask you what makes you special, it's a terrible question.
Hmm.
No one has
Everything.
except or nothing, like,
Yeah.
what do you mean? What makes me different? What makes me special? Like, you instantly want to kind of like curve into a corner and just don't ask me anything, go away.
Yeah. Yeah.
Where if I kind of flip that on and of itself, and in your industry, where are some things that you don't agree with that most people do? Now you can have a real answer most of the time. And there's
Yeah.
like alternatives to this question. You can flip it around on its head until you find the right words that trigger like almost like this instinctive response from you. Like, what do you find cliche about your industry? And
Hmm.
everyone has something that they instantly think of. And okay, if that's cliche, I'm assuming that you don't do things that way. Why? And now I have
Hmm.
an interesting conversation going on, and I can pick out things that I then put into the forefront of your brand. So instead of this just being, oh, but I don't do things that way, is I don't do things this way because XYZ. And now I
Hmm.
have something as a potential client, for example, in that example of your friend who was picking the photographer, even if they end up with the same photographs, the same price point, the same package, so deliverables, etc. If one of them goes, most photographers do things this way, I don't because XYZ, then now I have almost like a list of reasons where I either agree with you or I don't. And so the buying decision just got that much more easier. And I can pick now.
Hmm.
There's something for me to pick from. And
Hmm.
that's when I say that putting someone's personality at the forefront of their brand doesn't have to be like this extravagant theme like I have with the circus. It can literally just be you as the person. Just be willing to come into the spotlight and let us see what's there.
Yeah, and it probably doesn't mean too that you have to put like everything in your life on the line for
Yeah,
your
like,
brands too.
no, 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 no. And I'm no example, but you also
Hmm.
don't have to be constantly online. Like, don't be as offline as I am. Just this is the point where you listen to what I say instead of doing what I do. But you get to pick and choose what you're putting out online. Just be careful not to edit out the things that perhaps you find quirky or weird, or perhaps this is a little bit like too much or too little. Like, when you start going into that kind of mental self-talk, there's stuff that we keep private because maybe it involves other people, like family life. I'm not putting my boyfriend's face online because I know that he doesn't want to. Okay, that involves someone else. Cool to make that decision. Or
Hmm.
family, like they didn't choose to have their face plastered across various social media platforms. I'm ignoring that side of life too.
Yeah.
But everything that's my own quirks, I'm happy for other people to know. I
Hmm.
think we instinctively can tell when whatever we're sharing is personal versus unprofessional. I'm not going to share stuff about clients. I'm not going to dish out on clients online, even if they are
On
terrible.
threads.
Yeah, even if they are terrible, like that's just
Yeah.
something that I'm not willing to do, and it's a part of my own values. And I think the answer to that question is just really knowing your own values. What are you
Yeah.
okay with?
Yeah. Did you ever find yourself watering down your unique quirks and personality in your business?
I think I found myself doubting if I should push something out online or not. And in those moments, what I do is I leave it on draft, and then I come to it the next day and see how I feel about it.
You give yourself a buffer.
Because most of the time it's me overthinking things. Oh, how are people going to interpret this? I don't want to get canceled. I don't want to like you suddenly
Hmm.
you build out this whole spiral of things that are never going to happen. And if you just give yourself a breather, things turn out okay. The world will not implode. I've had moments where like my blood is boiling from a particular scenario that has just happened, and I have to remember that share from the scar and not the wound type of scenario where it's like, no, again, I'm giving myself time to figure out if and how I want to process this online. And
Hmm.
I like that whole thing of everything is content. No, not everything is content. There's a line there.
Yeah.
But your line can be different from my line. And some things that I'm not willing to do, perhaps you are. And it's so
Hmm.
obvious, like you have content creators that are okay with putting their child, for example, on social media, and there are others who aren't. That's just
Hmm.
different lines. It's not someone is better than the other person. It has nothing to do with it. Some people are comfortable with doing things that others aren't. And your audience is going to see that and gets to choose who they relate to with most.
Yeah. Yeah, it's just like owning your values and like
Yeah.
like moving forward with integrity, essentially.
And owning your growth too, because those values can change. You can change your opinion on things. It's like nothing is
Yeah.
really set in stone. So you can also be upfront and say, hey, I thought this about X. Here's why I don't anymore. Or what changed my mind? Or you know what? Now I'm unsure. Here's what happened. And help like
Hmm.
not even necessarily help me figure this out, but I'm figuring this out. So if you're too, come along for the journey because that's what
Yeah.
we're all just figuring shit out, truly.
At the end of the day, it is. That is the theme. But I'm
Yeah.
so glad that you mentioned that because I think a lot of people hold themselves back a lot because they're afraid, like, of the cancel culture or being perceived the wrong way or being misunderstood or even
Yeah.
like being like, what if I change my mind or something? I've done that so many times ever since I stopped using threads. I'd post a lot on there. I would never bash clients or anything like that. I see that a lot, and I'm like, whoa,
Yeah.
you're crossing a line, in my opinion. But
Yeah.
I would share a lot of like perspective stuff, but a lot of it was, I think, influenced from what I was seeing that was
Mhm.
posted from other people. And after giving myself a break from that and really reflecting myself, like understanding like what I believe in, like from my core is some of the things that I shared, I don't really believe in anymore. And like, that's fine. I don't know what those things were, but I know that I don't believe in them anymore.
And
Um,
we all hold like contradictory points of view. Just like I
yeah.
circling way back to the beginning of this conversation, the whole building in public, like I love seeing it as a consumer. I cannot
Mhm.
wrap my hand around it yet as a service provider. Maybe I will one day. And that's when I can come in and say, I finally figured this out. I haven't
Yeah.
yet.
Yeah. Did you ever share like the process of rebranding?
I have more times than I can count have publicly said, I'm doing my first ever launch because I've never written a single sales email in my whole
Okay.
entire life. I think
Hmm.
as a designer, I am very blessed and grateful that I have been able to just get clients based on referrals and cold pitching myself and
Hmm.
all that jazz. I have never done a traditional like open card, close card for anything.
Hmm.
Not actually rephrasing, it just scares me. I don't know the process, so I don't wanna get myself into something that I don't know what's going to entail in terms of work and energy and costs even, like, I have no idea. Figuring it
Hmm.
out. Doesn't mean that my business is imploding either, like, it's still here and pretty much thriving. But I've done that. I've done that. I'm doing my first ever launch. It doesn't happen. Nobody's knocking on my door saying, "Eva, you said this and you didn't follow through. You're being like you're being whatever." Like it hasn't. People don't care. Honestly, they don't pay that
Yeah.
much attention to how you're following through with things. Of course, that if
Hmm.
you come up front, and I've seen this work with a lot of people, even creators that I admire. Like I need people to hold me accountable to what I'm saying. So here's me saying it in my newsletter, please come back for me if I don't do this. That's
Yeah.
cool too. Just figure out what your MO is.
Hmm.
And I am actively trying not to be this person who's saying, again, I'm about to do my first launch and then doesn't do it. So, what I'm doing is that whole thing of doing the whole launch prep work right now. And then at the
Hmm.
end, I'm going to say, we're entering launch because now I have everything done and I can make sure that I'm following through.
Yeah. Yeah. I think that that prep work is so crucial when it comes to launching. Done a couple campaigns for a program that I used to have, and I was always just doing it on the spot, and I think I was like the most burnt out I've ever felt
Yes.
during
And like,
that.
I feel I put genuinely my best creative energy towards my client work because my main service, which is called the extravaganza, lo and behold, is that rebranding process that I did for myself, except a lot more organized and streamlined.
Hmm.
And the point is that it encompasses everything. So it's the visual identity, and then we apply it where you're already showing up so that when the rebrand is done, you don't have this buffer time of I have a new visual identity and I don't know how to use it.
Hmm.
No, it's done. Just go out and get it. But what I really wanted to do was to give people this moment where they realize that their business has grown with them. And so
Hmm.
they can make everything else grow too, and give them this platform where if things continue to grow, and they will, then this brand can support them in that growth.
Yeah, I love the name of your offer, Extravaganza. I
Mm.
think that's like amazing. It's so on theme too. I have a list of your offers that I'm definitely going to put in the description. So, last question that I have for you is how should somebody maybe navigate or prepare for a rebrand? Maybe
Mhm.
they're kind of in this messy middle phase. Like, what do you think maybe the 1 to 3 things they should really do right now to
Yeah.
prepare for a change?
I first of all, I feel like you should start to notice in your day-to-day life, and speaking of rebrand as the typical design-based style work, is just start noticing when it's the design tasks that are keeping you from doing something or that are taking way too long. Like, when's that happening? Is it in you're creating a newsletter, you have a weekly newsletter and you're finding yourself creating a new template every single week, and like that's not the way that it's supposed to be. Is it creating carousels that you want to create more of, but like one carousel is taking a lifetime for you to do, so it's just not sustainable anymore? Why is
Hmm.
that? Is that like when you place text on the pattern, just it doesn't look right, it's not legible? Like, try and put words into the actual like day-to-day nitty-gritty things that are causing
Hmm.
stressful moments, and that will probably give you an inkling of exactly what's not working instead of just my brand, because that's very broad, that can mean a lot of things.
Yeah.
So just starting to notice I have trouble doing this specifically, and then kind of figuring out is I would look at your online presence as a whole and try, like, you can do this in just your computer, like open it on several different windows. Just open your website, your main social media profile, whether that's Instagram or LinkedIn or whatever, and like your newsletter, and look at them side by side, and try and get a feel if they match to one another, like they give off the same energy, or they're the same version of each other, or
Hmm.
oh, this one's more outdated than the others, or I haven't touched this one in a while, so the others have evolved, but this one has stayed the same. So I
Hmm.
just getting a grip on and sitting down with your own brand and business is something that we don't do often enough. So literally taking a moment to, just like we do at the beginning of the year where we set goals and we set the task list to achieve those goals, like do the same but for the design part as well. So
Hmm.
literally look at things as you would a consumer. Take the actual consumer journey. What How does a consumer find you? Is it on social media? Okay, do that. Go on
Hmm.
your own feed, click your link in bio, click the links in your link in bio. Like, how does that feel? Are there
Hmm.
things that you would want to change? And like, it is a valid enough reason to just be, yeah, I don't like the look of this anymore. That's
Yeah.
cool. That's valid enough.
Yeah, that's so helpful because it's like find those gaps, find where there's tension, find
Yeah.
where you're like, I just can't look at this anymore. It's so outdated. I think that's such a good point. So basically look at everything on your screen, all of the touch points, and then what was the first one that you said? You were
Find like the moments in your day-to-day
the
life where you're like,
moment.
I
Oh yeah.
struggle doing this.
Yeah.
I don't want to
Yeah.
spend 10 hours doing this anymore.
Okay. Those are great two things to start
Yeah.
ASAP if you're feeling like you're in the messy middle. You're like, I definitely need a rebrand. I just don't know why or what that could look like. So,
Because
yeah.
the
Well,
whole point of having a brand is just to make your life easier, not harder. So if it's harder,
yeah.
then something's missing.
Yeah, just like you said earlier too, it's a system, like it's a tool that you
Yes.
use.
Yeah.
Yeah,
So just
so
change the tool if this is not fitting anymore.
yeah. Well, amazing. I loved this conversation so much. Thank you for being on Dear Creator. Do you want to shout out any of your socials or offers that you're selling, inviting people into?
Yeah, I'm at Flying Colors Creative, colors with a U, because I'm Portuguese and we learn English the British way here. So that's just the way we roll. Flying Colors Creative, anywhere and everywhere. I have my own podcast called The Freak Show, and this is where you're starting to get the theme. A newsletter called Uncaged, and then like if you're in this boat of, you know what, things just don't look good anymore for me and I want to change them, then I would invite you to check out the Extravaganza, which is my signature service.
Yay, amazing. Well, thank you so much, Eva, for being on Dear Creator. I can't wait for everybody to hear this.